As promised, it is time to go into DPS. Right, as promised, we're going to go over the DPS of the weapons in Remnant. Going to put them in order, so that way we can quite literally see best to worst or worst to best, however I decide to do it, which I'll figure out in a minute. However, before I do this, I need to get everyone seen off the same song sheet. Typically, when it comes to DPS, we equate it in three forms. We have Alpha, which is normally one shot, you're dead. Sniper rifles, nukes, missiles, things like that. Anything that will one-shot something in a game. We don't really calculate this as DPS. We calculate this as alpha damage. This is your single shot damage. Burst DPS is quite simply your damage over any given period. It's simply calculated as your damage multiplied by your rounds per second. If you're doing RPM, rounds per minute, it's damage times rounds per minute divided by 60. And then lastly, we have sustained DPS. This factors in your magazine size and your reload, and it is literally magazine size times your damage divided by your reload speed plus your magazine size divided by your rounds per second, or again, if it's rounds per minute, it'll be divided by rounds per minute divided by 60. This gives us three different forms of essentially DPS calculations. Alpha damage, like I said, is just I one-shot something. There's no point going further than that to calculate DPS because you one-shot it. Damage per second, or as we like to call it, burst, which is your average damage over typically a single magazine or a set period of time without having to factor in your magazine or your reload. This is typically what most people would calculate when dealing with just general ads or mostly in PvP. And then there's sustained DPS, and how this would translate for Remnant would be bosses, essentially. Now, there is a spanner thrown in the works with this, simply just because things like Spore Bloom and Widowmaker exist. The lower you can get their reload to 0, and the lowest I've got mine is 0.25 seconds. Yeah, you can essentially just outperform everything, which is kind of a joke. This also does apply to bows, however, I don't know the Remnant community that well. I don't know whether you would like me to calculate these as fully charged shots or just press the button as quickly as possible. For the purpose of this at the moment, until I get a bunch of angry comments going, no dickhead, charge shots only, duh, I'm going to keep it as I'm spamming the button. Now, there is one more thing to go over, and that is there are technically two types of weapons. We have hit scan and projectile. Hit scan, you pull the trigger, the game sends essentially a ray tracing light, and it will instantly hit. The moment you fire, it will hit. It registers the damage pretty much instantaneously. And then there's projectile, which I'm pretty sure we can all figure out what this means. If you've played a bow, they do lots of damage, but it's considerably harder to hit things. Now, these are all on the same spreadsheet. However, I have highlighted the projectile weapons in blue. Hopefully this means if your favorite weapon is on here and it's highlighted blue, don't necessarily take the full burst DPS that as I'm showing. Don't take it at face value, just simply because these are all assuming 100% accuracy, and outside of the range, good luck maintaining that. Anyway, without further ado, this is the lovely aforementioned spreadsheet. Red, the weapons highlighted in red are ones I don't actually have. However, the stats for these weapons are available online. There are lots of people with them. It's not hard to find their maxed out damage as well as their rounds per second, which is literally all the burst DPS is, which is literally all we're going over in this video. So, they are listed from worst to best, and as I said, white is hit scan, blue is projectile. I don't know if Aphelion or Plasma Cutter are projectile, so they're just going to stay red. Be a bit weird if it was like red, white, blue, but still. So, in terms of DPS, the worst weapon is Merciless. Then we have Plasma Cutter, Rusty Lever Action, Huntsmaster M1, Alpha Omega, Chicago Typewriter, the XMG 57 Bonesaw, the Wrangler 1860, Starkiller, Pulse Rifle, Blackmore AR-47, Ford's Scattergun, AS-10 Bulldog, Nightfall, Repulsor, Twisted Arbalast, Aphelion, Nightfall with the mod active, Deceit, Coach Gun, Widowmaker, Royal Hunting Bow, Spore Bloom, Crescent Moon, Crossbow, Sagittarius, and last but not least, Saviour. Now, I am fully aware that this probably will surprise some of you, maybe not all of you. Hopefully those that haven't fallen over under the Nightfall trap, as I am currently calling it. However, before people decide to jump down my throat and go, Nightfall is the highest DPS, you might have noticed on the right of where it said burst DPS, I had sustained DPS. Now, I can't test this yet. Okay, so I'm going to show this just to appease the masses. I can't test this yet because I need all of the weapons to test their reloads, because that is going to be a huge part of it. However, when we calculate the sustained, remember reds are, I don't have them yet, so their reload is at 100 because I can't equate it. But your precious Nightfall is at, well, the bottom of the list, but the bottom also means it's the highest. At base, it has a sustained DPS of 621.5. I am equating its reload under the mod because I'm fully aware we can have it essentially permanently active, but I'm equating it at 0.1 seconds because all you have to do is press F again, or whatever button it is for you on your weird peasant controllers to activate the mod again. So in terms of sustained DPS, at the moment, yes, it is higher. However, there is scope to get some of the single shot weapons, Spore Bloom, the Crossbow, and Widowmaker down to a 0.1 second reload. The only thing actually stopping you is how fast can you spam that button. These weapons are highlighted in purple. Yeah, 621.53 was the one to beat. Royal Hunting Bow coming at like 720, Crescent Moon coming at 760 pretty much, Spore Bloom 777, Sagittarius 912, Crossbow 776, Widowmaker 725. All of these, in terms of overall performance with this type of build, will outperform Nightfall. Although to do this you will have to make some concessions on your build. You will have to run Gunslinger as your main archetype, as well as run the Gunslinger charm and the Outcast ring. This will give you Gunslinger giving you 20%, the Gunslinger's charm giving you another 20%, so we're at 40% now, and then the Outcast ring giving you another 25%. There is also a mutator which on reload will increase your reload speed as well as your damage for another 15%. So we can get up to like 80% increase in reload speed. This near enough halves our overall performance. Adding in the simple fact of, I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but if you just sit there and click and let your character automatically reload, it is decidedly slower, like a second slower than if you, when running out of ammo, just press reload. So when playing with these one-shot weapons, one-shot reload, you literally just sit there and go fire, reload, fire, reload, fire, reload, like manually pressing, basically spamming, alternating as fast as you can. And that is how, if you've seen my previous video, I was able to get the reload down to 0.25 seconds, and there's still room for improvement because that's me being slow. Technically, I can go faster, I can press faster, it will let me go faster. Well, that brings an end to this video. That is their burst DPSs in order. I am trying to get Pulse Rifle and Plasma Cutter mainly because I'm kind of hoping they are similar to the Beam Rifle. No spoilers, please. In which case I might have to rejig a few things and just basically say that whatever one is like the Beam Rifle is just the outright best weapon in the game, because Beam Rifle was godly in number 1. Well, number 2, we don't talk about Kronos though, so number 1. And at which point I will be posting my sustained DPS findings. I'm pretty confident that at least at base level Nightfall with the mod active is going to be the most powerful. However, I also need to redo both the burst and the sustained, comparing all weapons with their mods active. Obviously for non-boss weapons this is going to be pretty obvious. However, for boss weapons some things may change. For example, in terms of burst DPS, the repulsor literally gets a 50% increase while its mod is active. Well, assuming you've hit something with the mod, but it's still a 50% increase. So it may have other effects on other weapons, and we never know, we might find a hidden gem somewhere. But in order to test all of these, I need all of the weapons. So wish me luck. I'm going to get back to grinding. Have fun. Good luck. Don't die. It's bad for the health.